Captain's Log, Episode 41. This week's episode of the Beer Vengers podcast is sponsored by Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, located at 35-11 Ditmars Boulevard in Astoria, Queens. Enjoy the eclectic array of craft beer, artisanal cheeses, and specialty grocery items at Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, home bar to yours truly, Captain Porter Brown Stout. This week, Captain and the Beer Wonder welcome guest beer venger-to-be and fellow podcaster, Molly Lamb, for some great pours, a compelling origin story, and more updates on stuff we're doing this year that we couldn't do last year. Check out Molly's exciting new podcast, Brews Less Traveled, wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to like, star, and subscribe us whenever that feels appropriate. And send us your emails at thebeervengers@gmail.com if you have any questions, suggestions, or if you just like hearing us talk about you on the show. And now, without further ado, please enjoy episode 41, Hazed and Confused.
Well, we're the beer vengers, beer vengers, beer vengers.
We're the Beer Vengers.
Welcome to the Beercast, everyone. Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Astoria, Queens, I am Captain Porter Brown Stout.
And coming to you from an undisclosed location in the County of Kings, it is I, the Beer Wonder.
And we are
the Beer Vengers.
That's right. We're the Beer Vengers. You're the Beer Vengers. Wherever you're listening to us, from all the places we've been downloaded, whether any of those 32 states, 14 countries, as well as parts unknown. That's almost my favorite because it could be anywhere. We're happy.
I believe it's aliens, Captain. I believe it's aliens.
You think it's aliens? Okay, yeah. It could be aliens. It could be Mississippi. You just can't tell.
You never know. You never know.
There are a lot of parts unknown in Mississippi, both to us and I think just because the Zencaster, our thing doesn't know. Anyway, happy to have all of you here. Welcome to the Beercast. We're really excited today because we got some great pours, but even more importantly, we have another guest beer venger-to-be, the host of the great new podcast from Beervana. It's called Brews Less Traveled. Please welcome Molly Lamb.
Yay, Molly! Woohoo!
Well, hello. I'm super pumped to be here and be a beer avenger for the evening.
Well, you're not just a beer venger for the evening. Once you're a beer venger, you're always a beer venger.
For life.
Yeah, this is part of your ongoing origins. Oh, I
Don't
stopped
say
myself.
It, you're gonna trigger
Sometimes
it.
if I do it, I trigger the sound. So, but you're the beginning fable, starting story, whatever you want to call it. So we have great pours. We have a great interview coming up with her. Talk some more ideas about our weekend beer. This is it's great after the last 2 weeks of day drinking. We have a nice little evening drinking tonight. It's about 8:30 p.m. on a Tuesday night in New York City, and I know you prefer Gotham.
Gotham Town, yes.
Well, why is it is there a reason you prefer Gotham?
Well, because it's a secret identity, it's a secret location, and it's very superhero appropriate.
I mean, it does sound classy, so I'm up for that.
we classy, yo. That's how we do.
That's
awesome.
Right. Okay, so I guess one of us has to go first. Who do you think should go first, Beer Wonder?
Well, I mean, we do have an exceptional guest this evening who I am super excited about. So it seems like it would only be polite if Molly did our first pour of the night.
You're absolutely right. I was testing you a little bit there. Of course, Molly. What do you have for us today?
Guys, I have a great one from Listerman Brewery in Cincinnati, Ohio. It is their Lemon Pound Cake. It's an American blonde ale brewed with lemon and vanilla in it, and it's delicious.
Oh, really good. I'm looking forward to seeing that one.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Let's crack that open.
Well, I was going to say, let's see that one.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, good.
Very fresh, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yum.
Like condensation on that. My hands almost didn't.
Gorgeous glass. Hold that up just a little bit because I want to see that gorgeous
there.
pour.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's this wonderful straw color. It's got this gold to it that I just love. Oh, and the head buildup is just beautiful as well. You're getting a lot of nice creamy foam on the top of that thing.
Yeah, really nice tilt there, too.
I mean, Molly is a beer professional, so this is exactly
Yeah,
the kind of pour we're looking for.
I don't know. I don't know what you call that glass. It's sort of it's not. It's much like wider than a champagne flute, but has that same basic shape to it. That's
I've
really
had a
nice.
lot of practice pouring beer, but yeah, this is one of my favorite beer glasses. It almost has like a little built-in groove for your fingers
Mhm.
on
Oh,
it.
very
It's
pretty.
nice. But yeah, it's a beautiful color. It looks kind of just like a IPA
Mhm.
or a typical blonde ale, but then the aroma just really gets you with that lemon and then the flavor and everything. So it's a blonde ale with a great surprise to it, I think.
Very good.
Ooh.
Will you hold up the can next to it so we can see them together?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
And lovely can art too. That kind of
yeah.
like yellow gold color. Is that a thumbs up on the bottom of the can? Is that what that is?
I actually don't know what that is. It's not a thumbs up. It looks like water coming out of a faucet into a little bucket.
Oh, okay.
Very
So
nice.
far from a thumbs up, but like I think it's their logo. I'm going to have to actually figure out what that is, Beer Wonder, because I don't know.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, there you go.
All right. Well,
Yep. Oh,
yeah,
beautiful. Oh, it's just pouring right in. Oh, look at that.
that's
Is
great.
that what it is? Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's what the beer. What's going to happen to the beer once it's time for drinking, right? Just
Yeah.
goes straight in.
All right.
Uh-huh.
Well, I want to see what the Beer Wonder brought today.
Well, I am very excited today because thanks to our dear friends at Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, I have a
Sponsored pour.
yes, indeed. Sponsored for brought to you by our friends at Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars at 3511 Ditmars. This one is one that I'm excited about. It is a Florida beer coming to us from Miami-Dade County from our friends at J. Wakefield Brewing. It is Rolling Cloud, a double dry hopped hazy double IPA.
Oh,
Look
very-
at that,
yeah, that looks
lovely
great.
can art, right? Good cloudy,
Meditative,
fluffy.
yeah.
Mhm. Very gentle. Well, so I'm excited about this one. It's a nice 8%er, so should be pretty good. Right.
Quite
And
the crack.
here's the pour.
All right.
I love a good hazy. It's one of
Yeah.
my favorite styles. And yeah, I feel like clouds on the can kind of evokes that hazy feeling.
Oh,
sure.
absolutely.
Look at
Well,
that pour.
Yeah. Well, and see, and what I love about this one is everything I've seen about it and pictures of other people pouring it and whatnot. Definitely talk about how it does have a slightly aggressive head, like a high level of carbonation, good like bubble retention up there. There's some extra protein in there, so you can see both the cloud on the top as well as the cloudiness in the beer. So very
Well,
excited
that
about this
looks
one.
great.
Oh, it smells so good.
Well, as luck would have it, my beer is also a.
Sponsored pour.
That's right, a sponsored pour from Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars and Astoria Queens. We actually didn't talk about this before the show. We just
rarely
so
do.
happens. We try to sometimes, but we're so
That's
excited to get here on. We don't want to leave anything on the floor that you beer vendors out there miss. So obviously, if you've been listening to the podcast a while, if you've even heard my name, you know that I favor the darker stuff. But I this is summer. And I'm seeing having a harder time finding new things out there because a lot of the stouts are staying on the shelf. So I'm using that as an opportunity to, rather than repeat myself, to sort of explore out and see. And I've had some really good beers, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But this one, even though it is a new one for me, was the last one they had at Astoria Beer and Cheese. But they gave it to me, and also I feel like we didn't really indulge enough in the Pride Week beers. So this is the Bell's Sparkleberry.
Ooh,
It's a
Oh,
Pride
my.
beer. It is a sparkling Belgian style ale. It's a Tripel.
oh.
And we'll see
Uh,
if we can
Lovely.
Shout out to Tripelman out there.
shout out to Tripelman, yeah.
Yes, one of our.
Absolutely. I love Belgian beers. I love Belgian yeast.
Yeah. So when
like
you think
this one.
Belgian, Molly, flavor wise, what are your go tos?
I love anything that's kind of got like a little bit of like a banana-y
Mm-hmm.
undertone to it, but I love a good Tripel.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes it's like in something, I don't know, to almost give it like a stewed fruit vibe to it. Belgian yeast, I feel like sometimes it adds like a little bit of sweetness to it.
Oh, definitely.
Hefeweizen will have a little bit of that
It
banana.
really does have that nice, really beautiful strawberry. Or I don't know if it's strawberry, if it's what kind of a berry it is, but it's raspberries. I'm sorry, it's raspberries. You can kind of tell from the shape there.
Nice and tart. Yeah, raspberries are good. Gives it that kind of tart flavor.
And definitely, I saw some red color to that one as it was pouring in. You got a good aggressive head on that one, so it looks like it's going to be a nice drinker.
All right, cheers, Beer Vengers. Slancha, Kampai, etc. That's very nice. Very, very refreshing.
Mm.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Molly, this one being sort of that blonde ale. Now, had you sampled this beer before you brought it to the beer cast today?
I have.
Okay.
I had a couple last week. And yeah, it's not a beer I would typically choose.
Mm-hmm.
I do love a blonde ale, but I don't know if I would normally go for a lemon pound cake beer. It's just not something that would typically strike me. I normally drink hazy or double IPAs or stouts or porters. I'm kind of like in those two
Yeah.
ends of the spectrum. But this one's delicious. You get that lemon kind of on the finish. And so yeah, they brew it with lemon and vanilla. They add that into the fermentation. I asked one of their taproom managers about that. And it's a delightful beer. It's super just like crisp and refreshing.
Now, you have actually been to Listerman's brewery, yes?
Oh
Listerman?
yeah.
Okay.
Part of my job on the Brews Less Traveled podcast is to visit craft beer cities that are sort of known as being undiscovered. So like not Denver, not Asheville, we kind of know, but those places can knock our socks off with their craft beer scene. I'm going to places that you might not think of for craft beer. So the first beer city that we did for the month of June was Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
So I visited 4 different breweries there, and Listerman was actually hands down my favorite brewery. I don't know what it was. It just kind of had this vibe of like a local watering hole. You know what I mean? It was like you go in, it's just like this cozy little kind of neighborhood dive bar. I love a divey vibe. It had a bigger back room. Actually didn't go in that room, but the front area was so cozy. I got to know Abby, who is one of their taproom co-managers. I had her on my podcast. She was fantastic. She was so cool. And I snagged some beer from her and came home with a bunch of fun stuff. And they're great at doing these sort of experimental ales, but not so completely off-centered. They're still very approachable, but like this one, this lemon pound cake blonde ale, it's a little bit experimental, but it's not so crazy. There's a lot of flavors that are almost nostalgic to you when you have it. It's a delicious beer. They do a great job. I love Listerman.
We featured a couple of their beers on the podcast before. We had one, I think their Chicow Espresso, as well as their Cookies and CREAM Imperial Stout, they're both very, very, very nicely done.
Nice.
I gotta know.
Won an award.
Oh yeah, I gotta know, how do they get the vanilla in there? Is it like do they actually put vanilla beans? Or are they using an extract? Were you able to get any deets on that one?
Extract. Yeah, they're using lemon and vanilla extract. It's just less wasteful than using like actual lemon pound cake. But yeah, they've won a bunch of awards. That Chicow you mentioned, Captain, they won something at the FOBAB. I think it got best in show at the FOBAB. And yeah, they've won a bunch of awards. They're a great brewery, really doing a good job.
Excellent. Tell us more about that beer you have there, Beer Wonder.
Well, I mean, I know, Molly, you are a fan of the hazy IPAs, double IPAs. This one definitely checks all the boxes on that one. So this does appear to have been a short run of theirs, so I wasn't able to get a ton of information about the brew itself and what is in there. But I do know that it definitely gives me that nice hit of citrus that you want from a nice hazy IPA. It's got that good sweetness on the baseline. But it does hit me with a little bit more bitterness than I would anticipate for an 8% double dry hopped hazy IPA. So it does end with a nice astringency, which I kind of like. It's sort of that halfway point between that West Coast and that East Coast sensibility. It's kind of a nice mid-range beer. Really digging it. And all, at an 8%, I am absolutely starting to feel the effects of it after only a few sips. That could also be because I had a light dinner. But it's definitely doing its job. And that sort of rolling cloud sensibility, I get that. It's got a lighter body to it than I would have anticipated for something like this. So scarily easy drinking, very delicious, nice hit of bitterness, beautiful nose, lots of grapefruit. Home run. Just real home run.
Very good.
And you, Captain?
This one, it's funny. I hadn't come across my radar at all. It's an 8%er, or or is it 9%? I think it's 9 actually. But it's very easy drinking, so dangerous in that way.
Mhm.
I don't taste a lot of the things I generally associate with Belgian beers.
Okay.
Because how whenever time you have an Allagash or an Amagang, they're like so those Belgian spices are always omnipresent.
Yeah.
This one I don't see it quite as much, but it's the sparkling and the raspberry is really that's what I'm taking away from it more, and it's delicious and light and wonderfully refreshing for the summer, and I'm liking it a lot.
Well, there you go. It's always nice to branch ever so slightly outside of our comfort zones, right? Something that we wouldn't necessarily expect.
It is. I find like every time because I've been going out to a few more bars this past week, and that's what I'm sort of doing, especially because it's some of their stouts that they have. They'll have one that I've maybe already had enough of.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And I might have one of those, but I'll always like, okay, let me try that double IPA. Let me try that sour. And I
Yeah.
will certainly get more into that story a little bit later because it's been an exciting weekend beer. But before we get to that to the weekend beer, I feel like we really should. We've had our lovely pours, but we also have a lovely guest. And we want to know a little bit how Molly came to be the beer drinker that she is, the beer venger to be. Spoiler alert, you'll be a beer venger by the end of the episode. But we really would like to hear Molly's origin story.
Origin story.
That's right. We need to learn how she came to be the beer venger because since we're beer vengers, I don't know how many episodes you've listened to, Molly, but since we took our name from the whole superhero thing, and all superheroes didn't just emerge from the womb. I did not emerge from my mother's womb as Captain Porter Brown Stout, nor did Beer Wonder as Beer Wonder. We had something that happened to us, or a series of events that made us who we are. So we want to know how you became the beer drinker, the beer aficionado, the craft beer fan that you are. How did it start for you?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great question. I feel like craft beer, once you kind of get into the world, it really just kind of puts its arms around you and just holds you. You know what I mean? You don't want to leave it.
Yeah.
I started out drinking craft beer actually when I was in high school. I am from Atlanta, Georgia originally, and there is a brewery there called Sweetwater, and they
It's
have
a cannabis-friendly brewery.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. And they have a kind of flagship pale ale called the Sweetwater 420. And I grew up drinking that, like seriously, in high school. So I definitely had, a bunch of Natty Light by the campfire and stuff like
Sure.
that too. But my older brother Alan, he would always drink Sweetwater 420, and all of his friends, they were really into jam bands. It's back when that was really big, like
Yep.
Widespread Panic and Fish and stuff. So we were kind of into the Widespread Panic scene.
Well, that
And
certainly fits into the Fish profile. The first time you had it, did someone explain to you what 420 meant, or did you already know, or do you
I
remember?
already knew. Yeah,
Okay.
I knew that was, like code for smoking pot. I was never a big weed smoker, but I loved beer. Like I just
Yeah.
automatically loved craft beer. I remember thinking like, wow, this is damn good beer, at 16 years old. So I started out with a really good beer on my palate, and then just kind of always loved beer, but didn't really remain that much of a craft beer drinker throughout my life. I got really into wine for a long time, really into kind of like natural wines and stuff. And then I was dating a guy about 6 years ago. He was a bartender, an excellent bartender, and he had a great palate for just really good beverages. And he cracked open a Sloop Juice Bomb, which Sloop is a New York brewery.
Oh yeah.
And this is such a well done beer, their Juice Bomb. It's
Yes.
so good. And I remember him opening it, and I just thought, this is such a good beer. And I was kind of blown away by it. It's a more juicy, kind of New England style, hazy IPA, which now the market is so saturated with, and there's a lot of really bad ones. This is
Yeah.
the one I always go back to. I just had my birthday in June. Definitely picked up a 6-pack of that because it's just so well done and it's such a consistent beer. That was about 6 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And that was one that kind of in recent years got me really into craft beer. Yeah. And then during the pandemic, I was running a business for a long time. I'm actually a skincare esthetician,
Uh-huh.
which I've been doing skincare for about 10 years. I've been running a business for about 8 years. And then the pandemic hit and my business, my storefront closed. And so I just kind of all of a sudden got into craft beer again. I remember walking down the bodega and seeing the founder's KBS stout. And I'm such a stout
Oh.
person.
So
And I
you're saying
picked
for
it
that
up.
for that 5 years you were kind of IPA focused.
Yep, I was very IPA focused. Always loved stouts though. And I picked up the founder's KBS stout and started drinking that on like a sweltering like June day. It took me out that, there was like dust on it. You know what I mean? Like on
Yeah.
the shelf, like no one was drinking this beer. I was
Well,
like,
if this
really
was
good.
like a couple of months, and if it was relatively new, there was a version that came out in May of last year that was like with the Mackinac fudge in it. Does it sound like? Did you remember seeing that on the label?
I don't think that was on the
Or maybe
label.
maybe you were lucky enough that you see dust, I see an aged stout, so you got really lucky there.
Yeah, it glistened. It like literally sparkled. I was like,
Yeah.
that's what I want right now. I remember I'd been drinking so much wine at the beginning, at the height of the pandemic. I was like, I'm so sick of wine. And that beer just kind of called out to me. And then I wanted to start home brewing. I thought I had a vision of me becoming this great home brewer. Guys, it did not happen. They always say, if you Google it or YouTube it, they're like, it's as easy as making bread. Like, that is patronizing. Homebrewing is not that easy. There's definitely a finesse to it. The steps of it are methodical in a sense and are essentially easy, but there is, like I mentioned, a certain finesse to it. So shout out to great homebrewers and brewers out there, because I highly, highly respect that industry. And so I didn't really grab on of home brewing. I think I did two, and let's just say there were some off flavors, it just,
Yeah.
they weren't good. But I was like, I really want to learn this. So I started taking classes online at San Diego State and Cornell. They had craft beer courses. So got certified at Cornell and San Diego State. And then I did a volunteer program at a brewery in Colorado Springs called Rocky Mountain Brewery. So big shout out to them. Nick is the head brewer there. And, I just messaged him randomly on Instagram. I said, hey, can I come out and learn how to brew? Can you teach me? Can I shadow you? I messaged dozens of places. He was the only one that responded and said, yeah, sure. And he was so nice about it. He's the sweetest guy. He said, come on out. So I booked an Airbnb for 2 weeks and I worked in production. And kind of the rest, as they say, is history. And I got this job with Bruvana.
That's incredible. And when was that again, time-wise? Because it's amazing to me that
February.
they did all of this in our pandemic year. When I'm sure you were like being very careful and safe, but like my brain was like not in finding new skills, and you were just very productive. It sounds like.
Yeah. The classes were just online. I started doing those in October, so less than a year ago. And then I went out to Colorado in February, got a COVID test.
Great.
Yeah. We wore masks the whole time and everything. And it was just him. He's the only brewer there. It was literally just him. And so it was just me and him, total hands-on experience. I was milling like 600 pounds of grain, moving 200-pound barrels. I mean, I was kind of like, all right, the physics of this don't make sense, but let's give it a go. And he was great.
Did the physics make more sense now?
They do.
Okay. I can imagine even only just spending 2 weeks, if you're just that kind of concentrated thing, it would start to make sense to you.
It did a little bit. 2 weeks is not enough time to learn how to brew, but I learned a ton.
No doubt.
My head was kind of spinning with information, but in like a really great motivating way. So big shout out to him. And it was so fun. And just being out there in beautiful Colorado. I didn't really like love Colorado Springs specifically. There's not a ton to do there, but it's beautiful. You're right in the mountains. It's gorgeous. And I just learned so much, just the science of it and the physicality, just how much, physical labor goes into brewing, and I have such respect for brewers. And so it was amazing. And then I got this job with Bruvana hosting their podcast and they have like virtual beer and cheese events that I host. And I do some other internal work in the company, like fulfillment meetings and other kind of day-to-day things like that. But it's been a whirlwind. Yeah, I kind of can't believe it. I'm like, this time last year, I was still an esthetician fighting for my business in the midst of a pandemic, and now, I work in craft beer. It's kind of crazy how things
Yeah.
pan
That
out,
is amazing. Well, I'm just so curious, Molly, because I think a lot of people have this dream of like running away to become a brewer, and you lived that in a really cool, direct way. And sometimes I think that there is like a fantasy around what like making craft beer is. It's this like beautiful process, and we're just kind of drunk all the time. What does a day as a craft beer intern volunteer in production look like? Like, what did you do every day?
Yeah, no, I know. And I did kind of have that sort of aspect in my mind.
Mhm.
I was like, oh my gosh, it's this meditative thing. You're kind of just brewing, and it seems so meditative and wonderful. And it is. There are
Mhm.
aspects of it that are kind of peaceful. You're just sort of like marinating over this almost like porridge, in the mash. But a typical day, I would get there and I would kind of just see what Nick needed. Nick was the
Mhm.
head brewer out there at Rocky Mountain Brewery that was training me. And, we would either kind of finish what we were doing the day before, or we would start a new brew day. And
Mhm.
he would just kind of say, what do you want your beer to taste like? And then we
Hmm.
would just kind of go from there. And the way he did the program was so cool because he had never done this before.
Mhm.
We started out with me just actually going in their homebrew supply shop and just tasting the grain, just literally going and tasting the malt. Just like take one little grain, one little pellet of it, and just taste it,
Hmm.
and go through about 2 dozen of them and just taste it and just make notes on it and see what that's like. And then we started out with kind of a fancy homebrew setup. So like a nice big kettle over a flame, just kind of like a fancy homebrew setup. And we would do it that way. And then we graduated to the giant fermenters and mash tun and did it in a more professional way. So he kind of took me through this very methodical step by step, like really broke it down in the beginning and then got it to a more grand spectrum. And yeah, the day to day, it kind of varies a little bit
Mhm.
because it would sort of be picking up where we left off yesterday. But, mainly as a brewer, you are boiling water is a lot of it.
Uh-huh.
You are waiting on water to boil. And then you are adding the grains and seeping the grains and then, sparging them, kind of rinsing the grains to get all of the sugar down at the bottom, and then adding your hop additions depending on when those need to go in during the
Mhm.
whirlpool, during the boil, or if you're dry hopping it, adding it in the fermenter, later, after. And it just kind of would depend a little bit
Mhm.
on what was going on that day and where our beer yesterday left off.
Hmm. Gotcha. So it is sort of like a continuous forever process where you're sort of tending to the beer over a series of days.
Yeah, you definitely are. It's kind of this living thing,
Mhm.
You have the wort, which is, the beer before it's actually beer, before it's, has alcohol, before you've added the yeast in it. Because really, brewers don't make beer. Yeast really makes it beer. That's what
Very true.
gives it the alcohol and the sugars and carbonation as well. And you are just kind of tending to this thing and seeing what happens. And there was some times where like we would pitch the yeast and the yeast would pitch. It wasn't really active,
Mhm.
and so we would kind of have to redo things. And it's a lot of cleaning
Oh,
working at a
okay.
brewery. It's like a
No, yeah,
ton.
that doesn't surprise me.
Beer is so sanitary. I mean, everything is cleaned. You have sanitizer and cleaner. Those are kind of two different things. You're, cleaning and sanitizing everything before it touches the beer or afterwards. So a lot of times you're spending like half the time kind of cleaning, like
Mhm.
Dear
50%
Wonder,
of
I
the
think I
time.
think when you were doing your home brewing, I remember you being really focused on that as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I remember was that sanitizing everything was just so utterly important. And I remember, Molly, you mentioned that there were some off flavors in your beer. I know that sometimes that can be a product of maybe something didn't get totally cleaned, or
Yeah.
maybe something sat too long. And I can imagine on a massive scale like you're talking about, that could really ruin a lot of this, wonderful product that we all enjoy.
Absolutely. Yeah, the off flavors a lot of times can come from bacteria from from something, and it's not necessarily bacteria that's going to harm you, but it will
Mhm.
make your beer taste gross.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
it's tedious.
yeah, I mean it is hard work, but it's just lovely because I hear a lot of people who go into brewing saying that their life is like clean, 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 maybe taste some hops, then clean. And
Mhm.
it's just nice that you were able to find this wonderful balance in the way that it was this sort of like process that included a lot of cleaning, it sounds like, but that you were actually be able to sort of like feel the creative energy that comes with making beer because that's what gets many people, so many of us into that, right? I think would you
Absolutely.
agree? Yeah.
Yeah, and I love how Nick explained everything to me. And then we would boil hops. One of the days I remember we did that and we just kind of made like hop tea. We didn't drink it because it doesn't taste great, but just to smell it and kind of go on this
Mhm.
like aroma sensory journey with the hops and, just try, I think it was like 2 or 3 dozen hops that we boiled and just got to know them, got to know their
Yeah.
character and what that variety of hop was like. And he really just said, what do you want your beer to taste like? One of them, I added cardamom and like vanilla, just like
Mhm.
kind of weird
Yeah.
things in it. And just to see what would happen. I never got to taste that one because it wasn't, I was only there working in production for actually 10 days. So it's like
Mhm.
not a ton of time to see anything through to fruition. But, he really did put a big emphasis on the creativity behind it.
Yeah.
It is a lot of manual labor, it is a lot of work. You're going to get dirty, but there is this beautiful creativity. And I just have such respect for brewers. It's like nurses and teachers and then brewers. It's like my top three professions that I just have such respect for. Brewers typically don't make a lot of money. They're
Yeah.
not like super rich guys. It's kind of like a labor of love. And a lot of them are former food scientists and these just incredibly brilliant guys. It's a
Mhm.
very cool profession. I have a ton of respect for it. I don't know if I'm cut out for it, but I loved going out there and doing that and just kind of getting my hands dirty and learning. It was so inspiring.
Yeah, and I also love listening to your experiences in Cincinnati. It's interesting because we recently did a two-part episode when I went to visit my dad in Dayton. We did crawl there, and there was a little. Dayton, Ohio, is about an hour north of Cincinnati, and we talked a lot about the Dayton breweries, but also talked about Cincinnati breweries, and we featured two of the breweries that you featured on your podcast on our show, which was Listerman's as well as 50 West. And so I really found listening to your first few episodes fascinating because you don't just like throw in one or two beers. You spend four consecutive, or actually, the Cincinnati show is going to be 5 weeks. Is that right?
Yeah. So we do a whole month. So there was 5 weeks in
Right. So it's a
June.
really
So
deep dive into a city that you might not have heard of, and what a great time to do this because every city you could like throw a dart onto a map, and you go like, okay, what good beer is here? Obviously, your research a little deeper than that, but yeah, Cincinnati is
Well,
such a great beer town. I'm looking forward to the one you have coming up. Is about the brew bus guy who just takes you to all the breweries all over Cincinnati.
yeah.
and
That
and
sounds fascinating.
for people who may be catching up to this, so your podcast is called Brews Less Traveled, right? And can you tell us a little bit about, because I know it's not just that it's a podcast, but it's like a podcast and there's another part to it. Can you tell us a little bit about how this works?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Brews Less Traveled is both equal parts. It's travel and beer. The
Mm-hmm.
emphasis is on beer, but basically I go to these cities, these craft beer cities that have kind of an undiscovered scene and I discover them, so it's really, obviously the job sucks. It's like no fun at all. Like I have to travel.
Clearly.
I
Oh
have to go
yeah.
to breweries. It's like terrible. But yeah, it's great. Yeah, and especially right now because everyone is getting back out there into the world and traveling. So this is
Yeah.
a great podcast for anyone who loves to travel and anyone who loves craft beer. And to be honest, who doesn't at least have a slight interest in those two things? So
Right.
I go to the cities. Our city this month for July is Pittsburgh. So I was just in
Ooh.
Pittsburgh, visited 4 breweries. It's always kind of a whirlwind and I interview people there, get them to come on the podcast. So We're doing it. I'm recording it tomorrow night. We have 11th Hour that we're going to feature, and that will launch a week from tomorrow. So yeah, it's super fun. I mean, I get to talk to everyone from brewers to tap room managers to brew bus owners. I have a can artist guy coming on
Oh, fun.
one episode. Yeah, like there's so many aspects to craft beer, so it's really great. And I get to hang out and just ask them questions, get to know them, promote their beer and brewery. We have a different beer that we feature each week. Some weeks it's even two. So people sign up for this, and it is a beer subscription club. So it's the
cool.
Brews Less Traveled Beer Club. So people can sign up either for 6 months, or they can just do 1 month, and they get all of these beers delivered right to their door. So it's a great thing if you're a beer lover, because these are beers that you can't really get. That's the thing with craft beer. It's so local. It's kind of only in your region. So if there's a great beer from Wyoming, I live in Brooklyn, I'm probably never going to get it.
Yeah.
For example. So that's
I have not yet found a good Wyoming beer. I haven't found any Wyoming beers. I found the best I've done is Idaho, as far as that region of the world.
I was in Wyoming in September, and yeah, I didn't actually go on like a beer venture there, but yeah, I'm wondering what their beer scene is like. That could maybe be.
I feel like the last time I looked at our list, I think we were up to 35 or 36 states, and our goal is to feature every state on this podcast. But your podcast, it was fascinating. Is like you think you know things, and you will always. Your podcast is great to listen to. It's entertaining and informative, and you may think you know some things. As I said, I grew up an hour from where her first 4 episodes were, and I didn't know that Cincinnati had the second biggest Oktoberfest celebration in the world.
Yeah,
and granted, I wasn't really into Oktoberfest as a child. I left there when I was about 2021, but still, I knew what Oktoberfest was, and I didn't know Cincinnati Oktoberfest was the biggest ones ever. And I also loved hearing about you talking about 50 West with the bike trail that runs through it, because my dad had told me about that, because he had stumbled across it specifically because of that bike trail.
I know that's the fun thing about doing this is we give facts on the city. So you learn a little bit about the city. And then, of course, it's mostly about the beer, and we tell you about the beer we're featuring. I research the beer, so you learn about that. I'll go into maybe the beer style a little bit. And my co-host changes every month as well. So that's kind of fun. I have a different co-host in a different city each month. So my co-host for this month, his name is Eric, and he lives in Pittsburgh. He's a local in Pittsburgh. So he's going to have a really fun insight to the city. I can't wait to hang out with him.
That is so cool.
Good. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
So I am also curious, how do you choose your cities? Can you give us an insight on that?
Yeah, I actually don't choose them. That is within the Bruvana company. They kind of have them picked.
Okay.
So I do their top secret until the new month arrives.
Oh, cool.
Until we kind of mail the beer boxes to our beer club members. Then we announce it.
Mm-hmm.
So I do know what the next few cities are. I cannot announce it. People
have
to tune in. So it's really fun. But we have some great cities coming up, and I cannot wait to visit them. So yeah, I don't actually get a say in that, but I'm suggesting a few, like Birmingham, Alabama apparently has a great craft beer scene. My brother and his sister-in-law live there, and they want me to come out. It's really cute. They're like, we have a great craft beer scene, and you can tell the company that they don't even have to pay for a hotel. You could just go here.
I have never had an Alabama beer.
No, that would be exciting. And it's so cool that in this time when we have more craft beer breweries period in the United States than we have ever had, that we can highlight all of these unique spots, and you're out there doing the good work of helping us reveal some of the places where we can get beers from, and supporting our new people who are making innovative things out there. That is just so cool.
So fun. Yeah. It's super funny. I follow just a ton of craft beer breweries and tap rooms on Instagram, and they're just all doing fun stuff, man. I mean, they have cool setups, they have live music, farmers markets, flea market stuff going on in their property. I mean, they're just really the thing I love about craft beer is it's so community oriented. Do you guys notice that? It always seems like they're really involved in the community.
Yeah, oh, most definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
I always joke that here in Brooklyn, and as a fellow, County of Kings liver, you probably recognize this. I love the idea that we can go into a brewery today, or you can walk into a brewery and there's like someone with a baby, there's someone with their kids, like people are playing
Someone with their
games.
dog.
Someone with their dog, yeah, and that there's music playing. That there's one of my favorite breweries here in Gotham. Spoiler alert: our dear friends at Five Boroughs Brewing Company, which has been a favorite of mine for a very long time, is bringing back their trivia night, and I have missed their trivia night so much.
Yeah.
And we used to, I used to go play games in their room. It becomes that third space, right? It becomes that community space where we can go and have a beer and be with people. And I love that. I mean, for me, that's always been like a Brooklyn thing. I go to a brewery and I see people hanging out with their kids and their dogs and playing games, and maybe there's trivia and there's music and stuff like that. But I love that's been embraced now across the country. It sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
it really has.
people want to say that everyone gives a lot of lip service to being really supporting small businesses and made in America stuff. And I don't think there's anyone doing it better than craft beer.
I totally
think.
agree.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to move to Chattanooga, Tennessee
Mm-hmm.
in August, as you guys know, because we are friends outside of this podcast.
Yes.
And, again, I follow these places on Instagram, and it's so inspiring. It makes me excited to want to go.
Yeah.
Because I see what they're doing. There's, Naked River down there. There's Chattanooga Brewing Company, and they're doing really cool things. They're really just like hosting, farmers markets, flea markets, and bands. I mean, I know I already mentioned that, but just like they're really trying to bring people out, get people together, especially now that things are kind of winding down with the pandemic, we hope. And a lot of people have been a lot of people have been vaccinated and are feeling safer because of the vaccine rollout. And they're really trying to kind of cultivate that feeling of everyone is welcome. I feel that very much in beer, whether you have a baby and you're going to just stay for one beer, or if you are like a big group of people and it's a frat party and you want to like drink all day, we have like giant picnic tables and you can be loud in here and we're not going to judge you. So there's kind of all in the spectrum.
Yeah, almost definitely.
Yeah. And going on with the whole notion of sense of community. I did listen to all that, and I'm still trying to figure out what your Beer Avenger name will be, and we'll get to that. I don't know if you have any ideas, Beer Wonder. But
we were chatting beforehand, and it does seem that Molly may be our first Beer Venture who has come with a name herself, which is exciting.
Did I break the rules?
No.
Here's the weird thing is, I feel like the more I get to know someone, the more I think of them just strictly as a person and the person I'm getting to know, and it's hard to slap a label on that person, because you hung out with us and Huck, going to Grimm and a couple of other places, and we spent some time together a few nights ago, and so the more like it's just like it's I think sometimes I'm better at naming people who are virtual strangers, because I can pick qualities. But you actually have already figured a name for yourself. Well, I know we talked about it the other night, but
I said Hazy Lady just because I do love a good hazy.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we don't have many representatives for the IPAs here. I'll be honest. We have Hophead Huck, aka Pale Male, aka Sourpuss, aka Add.
And he's not even. He doesn't even. I won't even say his real name because it's not allowed here. But he doesn't even really drink IPAs anymore.
Yeah,
the other day, he was saying he drinks Pilsners more.
Well, I also think, I mean, listening to all of you, every time you interview a brewer and give them your survey, which you can give to us in a little while if you want to.
Okay.
I always think that, like, I feel the old school brewers are always more into the West Coast IPAs. So I think that, like, as popular as the hazy IPAs are, I think there's some skeptics out there. So I think it's great.
There's a lot of skeptics with hazy IPAs, and I think because
anytime there's a trend, there will be. I think, yeah.
And this was a big trend, and it came on strong.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel, to me, with hazies, what makes them so beautiful is it is truly identifying hop character.
Yeah.
Because there's so many hops in there.
Mm-hmm.
They're dry hopping, which is not boiling the hops. So it's extracting that aroma and that kind of juiciness.
Uh-huh.
And so to me, as someone who really loves the beauty of hops and what they can bring, and not just that bitter piney resin, but that juicy quality. You know, like if you have mosaic in a beer, it just leaps off your tongue. It's like juicy fruit, or, you know, citra. And, you know, I mean, to me, they're just such a beautiful representation of hops,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of them are so poorly done now,
Yeah.
and they taste like crap, and they're so heavily dry hopped.
Mm-hmm.
It almost tastes muddy. It almost like muddies the beer down, and it's heavy, and it's like carbonation cannot even get through that. I do like carbonation in my beer, unless it's a stout, then that's like a little different. But so a lot of them are very poorly done. And that's why, again, back to what I said earlier with Sloop Juice Bomb, that is a juicy, hazy IPA, New England style IPA, in my opinion. I don't know if they market it as such. They just kind of call it juicy. But they were kind of one of the first ones doing that ish. I mean, I know it came out of Vermont, but I think it's a beautiful style if it's done well. But there's too many on the market now.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, Molly. That was honestly one of the most beautiful descriptions of a mosaic hop I've ever heard.
Yeah, hazy lady it is. I don't think we need to discuss it any further. Yeah.
I was going to say, if you're feeling like that kind of defense of the beauty that can be hops, I feel like that is a mantle that you own. And I for one feel like Hazy Lady is a well-earned Beer Avenger name for you, if it is something that you feel good about.
I do. I'm hazed and confused, y'all. I love it.
Oh.
I came prepared with a pun. Okay.
Yeah, I almost want to call you hazed and confused instead of Hazy Lady, but Hazy Lady is great.
No, that could be good too. That's like one of my all-time favorite movies, Dazed and Confused.
It's a great movie, and it also fits into your first beer, since it's 420 friendly, and that was a very 420 friendly movie. So Hazed and Dazed.
So
there you go.
I love that.
It all comes together. It's
it does.
Beautiful layer cake.
One of the things we've been highlighting the last few weeks, couple of months, I don't know. As I said, time is a well. Okay, all right. It's a flat circle. I should have. That's a McConaughey mashup there. We've been talking a lot about how we've been revisiting places we're allowed to revisit and what those experiences have been. And I have a few. In fact, it was funny because on Saturday I was worried like I'm not going to have anything to talk about on the show, and then all of a sudden the last few days. We're recording this on a Tuesday night. I just all of a sudden found myself in all sorts of places. The first place I went was the new Alewife.
Oh yeah.
It was funny because it looked like it was going to rain all day. And I kept hearing all these people are traveling out. So I thought that New York City was going to be in its own, if you live in New York City or Gotham and one of the great things about holidays that you don't travel for is there's a lot more room to breathe in the city because so many people are gone. And so I got in a city bike and I went up to Alewife, and almost all their tables were filled. And I was thinking, I guess maybe I can't stay here. And I was explaining to the guy at the front's like, oh, we'll bring out another table for you. So that was really cool. I had to we featured the they sometimes come out at night Imperial Stout. Or I guess the full name is they mostly come out at night. Mostly.
I'm gonna need to try that one.
It's a good one. It's got like cinnamon and pretzels, and it's fantastic. And I had a beer there, and I had and they don't have a kitchen there, but they always have a food truck, and it's always listed on their Instagram. And it was a really, really great experience. But I was there by myself and at this like table, and I actually picked up some Curtain Up beer. We haven't talked about them in a while. I picked up a 4-pack of the Curtain Up Alewife version of it, which if you see that where you live, pick up some of that because that helps to benefit the performing arts. We are still struggling in the performing arts community. You're hearing all these stories about how Broadway is back, but it's not back till September, and then work is still few and far between. So find that wherever you can and buy it. So I had that, and then I decided, like, okay, I think I've had enough. This is an interesting place. They're curious because they've got an inside space that is not quite near being finished yet. But they're saying they're hoping maybe September, and it looks like there's a lot of fun stuff that can be going on there. And then I went down
of community spaces. That'll be
exciting. I mean, I think they've been doing like a Tuesday night. I have probably the wrong night, but they do a stand-up night once a week. there, and I think I don't know if that's in the space, and they do sort of like set up folding chairs or something, but that was interesting. Then I went to this place called Snowdonia, which is down on 35th Avenue, right near the N train. Just because I wanted to see how they were doing, and I just had a really nice evening. We were talking about like people bringing their dogs to bars.
Yeah.
And that was one where I just like, okay, there's not many people here, and there's not a whole lot of really amazing stuff on draft. They had a nice craft settings stuff there, but I sat down next to this guy who was there with his dog, very sweet dog, and then he took it back to his apartment, and then he came back to the bar, and I was just like, it was one of those. I was talking to him, and talking to the bartender, talking to a few other people at the bar. It's just one of those great things about bar culture. I know that sometimes this is trickier for women because anytime a woman is alone at a bar, she'll be hit on, and that sucks. but I hope that you're able to experience this sometimes, where those conversations you just get into with strangers at a bar where you'll never even talk to them again, or you might not, but mostly it's just like we're talking about everything from how the last year has been for us. And how it's all, and so I think I did have one of those sloop juice bombs there.
And
it was just one of those really great. I wound up like staying a lot longer than I expected to, because it was just one of those great bar situations.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite life experiences to have,
Yeah.
outside of like really grand things, just on like a day-to-day spectrum. Meeting a stranger at a bar, having a drink, a beer or whatever it is you're drinking, and talking and getting to know someone, and kind of letting your guard down a little bit, and hearing someone's life story. And it just like, you can have a really beautiful moment where they give you some advice and you're just like, my God, you don't even know me. And that was so profound, so that's great. I love hearing that.
Yeah, it was really nice to feel like, even though we were talking about our pandemic year, it was just like, we know we've all had this and we've been going through it ourselves, and to have that sense of community was fantastic. Yesterday I went to a couple places in Woodside, Solid State, which is a great place that focuses on local beers, and I want to give a shout out to our friends Randy and Tina. Belgian Babe introduced me to them, and they were the ones who introduced us to the Acquired Tastings podcast. They are originally from Arkansas, but it was really great sitting and having some beers with them and talking with them. And it's I don't know, when you're a real beer geek, you get a sense like 5 minutes in, like, okay, they're on the same page. I can totally geek out and not worry that, oh, I'm going into way too much detail and I'm boring them. It was just like, because they were telling all these stories about getting in Ubers and going to, I mean, every brewery we mentioned, they either had been to or wanted to visit. So it was just a fantastic conversation. And I'm really grateful to them for that Arkansas connection, because Molly, you were talking about the way that various places you don't think of as far as beer places, and they gave us they gifted our show with some great Arkansas beers.
Oh, it was,
now I want to go
it
see.
was so lovely.
Yeah. Okay, almost done. Alcove I went to after that, which is a really great place. They have like tapas plates where I had these incredible skirt steak skewers. And I had some wonderful nitro stout there from a brewery in Long Island, and the Belgian Babe had some kind of a salad with some, and they do these. They have these, one of those places where there's like everywhere you look there's another chalkboard. They have like maybe 7 or 8 things on draft, but they also have a bunch of wonderful stuff in bottles and cans and cocktails, and it's a great place.
What was this place called?
It's called Alcove, the Alcove. It's in either Woodside or Sunnyside. It's always tricky where the borders begin and end.
I want to check that out.
Yeah, that one sounds like a lot of fun.
It was fantastic. We were a little concerned because it was Tuesday night, but it was Monday night, and they were very, very busy. But it was worth the wait. Everything we got there.
It's great. Everywhere's so busy.
Yeah, it's nice to see life returning.
Yeah, especially like 4th of July week. That's like kind of, you wouldn't think it'd be so busy.
And speaking of our shared experiences on 4th of July week, I want to talk about our Sunday night.
Yes.
On the actual 4th of July.
On Independence Day. American Independence Day, because I know we have international listeners as well. On American Independence Day, the 4th of July, 2021, we all met at the domicile, at the undisclosed Manhattan town location that Hophead Huck and Cider Girl share.
Yes, and importantly, it was an important Beer Vengers meeting, including Cider Girl, Hophead Huck, and all of his additional identities. Mother Pucker, who is of course a recurring character, the captain, myself, and of course our new hazy lady joining our crew. So this was the first time I think we'd had a large scale Beer Vengers kill wall experience in a bit. If I'm not
Yes, I may have posted one or two of those on our Instagram, and if not, I will definitely do this the week that this is released.
Now, Molly, I know this was your first adventure at a Beer Vengers deep meeting that doesn't happen at a brewery. How was it for you?
It was so fun for me. I had a great time. You guys are the best. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, to see Hophead Hawk and Cider Girl in the undisclosed location in which they live, in which they cohabitate.
Yes.
And they just had a great little gathering, and we tasted so many beers.
Yes.
There was one
so many
spicy,
beers.
It was like a habanero stout. I don't know if
you're talking about the Space Ghost, aren't you?
Yeah, what was the spice in it?
It was not only a habanero, it was ghost peppers.
Nice.
Yes. So
it was a ghost pepper stout, yeah.
That was great. I brought a Crowler, a big 32-ounce can of Listerman, because that is one of
the best Irish stouts I've ever had.
I typically don't like an Irish stout because they're too kind of watery for me. I like a heavier, I'm like, give me an imperial stout kind of beer.
Yeah.
But that had that like just chocolatey coffee notes to it.
Yeah, I like a rich like stout or porter. But the one from Listerman, it's called the Shamrock Shake, and they brew it with Irish cream, and you just get this nice kind of smooth Irish cream on the finish, and it gives it just a touch more body, but was still totally drinkable for midsummer. And granted, it was not a hot day in New York City on 4th of July this year randomly, but a stout went down just fine. So yeah, we had that. And what was the one that Hophead Hawk brought out? It was like a wine beer combo. Does anyone remember the details on that one? It was pretty phenomenal. It kind of tasted like a sour ale, but
I think
it was
Beer
like
Wonder is
wine.
consulting the kill wall.
I am consulting the kill wall. Keep talking about how it tasted,
it was before you got there, Beer Wonder.
It was, but I can
get
the kill wall. But tell us more about how it tasted, Molly.
Yeah, it tasted more tart. It had that astringent kind of drying finish to it. A little bit of sweetness to it because of the fruit aspect. It tasted a little bit like raspberry to me, almost like a little bit of like a stone fruit vibe to it. It was really lovely. Yeah, and I'm not a big sour beer person, but I've gotten more into them lately because they are so nice in the summer. And this one was apparently a hybrid of a wine and a beer. And I can't remember the brewery that it was. I'm blanking on it.
The kill wall is indecisive on this one. It was in a beautiful clear bottle. With a gorgeous pink label. Perhaps this is something we will have to consult Huck for our hookups for next week, so that we can make sure that we get that in there. But yeah, it did sound like an absolutely beautiful beer, both in your description of it then and in your description of it that evening.
And we drank so many stouts and porters, you would not have known it was the middle of summer. I mean, this is just what makes
I think I have a bit of responsibility in that.
Me too. I brought a Crowler.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I ruined the trend, I'll be honest, but I had a moment that I needed to have with our
you had to,
our dear Mother Pucker. Now, for those of you who listened last week, you may recall that I was enjoying the unicorn farts with all of you.
Well, and I did right after we got off the show. That was my second pour that you didn't have
I
hear.
Remember you had one there, but this is a beer I had sent Mother Pucker on basically a wild unicorn chase for like a year, where we were trying to find it for her. And so having found a 4-pack, I thought it not only important that we taste it together that evening, but I also sent her home with a pack. And Molly, you also had a chance to taste it. Did you have an initial reaction to the unicorn farts made with fruity pebbles and edible glitter?
Yeah, I liked it more than I thought I would.
That tends to be most people's response, I'll be
Because
honest.
it's
I
such
mean,
a it's like
you're not even a sour fan yourself, Beer Wonder.
I know. Yes.
yeah, and it's like obviously like a hilarious name. I mean, I love that they just went for it with the name. And I listened to episode 40 where Beer
Yep.
Wonder talks about this. I think it was like on your last episode.
Yes.
It's a delightful beer. It's smoother. It's like got like more of a malt profile than most sours, I
Yep.
feel like, and has like a little more depth to it. It's a really nice beer. I liked it. I would totally drink it again.
Yeah, most definitely. It is a delightful, drinkable adventure, and I'm glad that Mother Pucker now has her much coveted can, and we had
It's
a chance
about
to taste
time.
it
But
together.
yeah, sours sometimes for me, they're almost like a palate destroyer. It's like
Yeah.
I taste a sour and it's like I can't taste anything else for the rest of the evening. It's like it just kind of, I don't know. I mean,
And
I
I
eat
was
Sour Patch Kids all the time, but
Yeah. Well, I was so glad that you actually ensured that we did have a Pilsner before a few of our beers. I thought, Molly, you were doing, or excuse me, Hazy Lady, you're doing an excellent job pacing us that evening, at least once
good.
I showed up,
Absolutely, yeah.
to make sure that we were, having our stronger beers and our lighter beers mixed together so that our tongues didn't just completely rebel over the course of the night.
that can happen.
Yeah.
There's actual taste therapists. That's a job that people
really?
have, and they talk about that sort of thing. I don't know much about it,
believe
but
it,
it's
yeah.
kind of interesting, because the tongue is a fascinating thing. It's a muscle, but then it also kind of has this ability to obviously taste things. And yes, sometimes sour can really sort of kill your palate a little bit. So I personally like to finish with a sour, but I did like how we did it, Beer Wonder. Like we had the stouts, then a Pilsner, and then the sour. And it was such a nice progression. It was like a really great beer tasting evening. I was so happy with that.
And I was really glad I was able to introduce you guys to the Warped Wing, a Baltic Argonaut aged
Yes.
in rye whiskey barrels
Very
That
much.
one
That was
was
lovely.
superb.
from my Dayton trip.
It was heavy.
Yeah, I still have a bourbon version of that in my cellar. So
Ooh.
that would probably
For-
make its
for a
emergence
future
at some
show.
point. Yeah.
Well, I did actually want to hop in with a quick hook up that was submitted to me by one of our listeners,
Oh, yeah?
a gentleman that if you are a listener of the show, may know, named the Globe Hopper.
Oh, yeah.
Who is doing the good work out there and hanging out with my friends over at Five Boroughs Brewing Company, along with another number of different locations. And he was listening to our show and wanted to let me know that, unfortunately, I mentioned I had attempted to taste a number of my favorite Pride beers this year, but I wasn't able to get down to Five Boroughs Brewing Company in order to get their beer this year, which is one of my favorites. It's their United by Beer, and I for years and years they've been making it as an IPA, but he did give a listen and let me know that this year it is a wheat ale. So they're making
Okay.
it as a really delicious wheat ale. It is supposed to be really kind of classic wheat style with citrus and spices, more of a craft Blue Moon take, but with a little bit more depth. And so I wanted to give a great shout out, of course, to Globe Hopper, who I'm always happy to hear from in any circumstance. He and I did a fun pass off via train of some top secret materials the other day. So shout out to meeting me on the platform
Excellent.
of the Q train and letting me literally throw a bag of something at you during all of that. And thank you for keeping an ear on the podcast and keeping us honest. I am very excited to have a United by Beer with you very soon.
I'm excited that we can let Pride spill into July. Just like 28 days isn't enough for Black History Month, 30 days isn't enough for Pride Month. We need to be, and we still have in the spirit of that. Since I had a Pride beer here tonight, let's celebrate all of that all year long.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Here's a bit of a huck up. Or more of elaboration. Last week you were talking about the Big Alice beer, with the donuts in it. I don't know which one you had, but the one I had last year was called Bodega Breakfast Stout.
that was the one.
And the donut company was called Comfortland Donuts, and the coffee in it was Native Coffee Roasters. And as far as the Cinnamon Toast Crunch, I did a Google search for that, and that's happening everywhere.
I know everyone likes a good cereal beer,
but I just did a search for a Cinnamon Toast Crunch Stout, and now I just want to get in a car and drive to everywhere I can find them because they just sound amazing.
Yeah. That sounds so good.
I don't know if we have much other business, but I do want to. This is in beer news. I don't know if anyone read that the Goose Island had a brewery in Philadelphia area that closed down during COVID times.
Yes, I did see that.
And it is going to reopen as an other half brewery.
Yes.
Other
Wow.
half is they're taking over that Goose Island. As much as I will continue to drink the wonderful Goose Island Bourbon County beers. I'm conflicted because of their associations with InBev. I will still drink those, but I feel like with other half taking over that place, they're probably in better hands.
Very much
Because
so.
I think the InBev people will let Goose Island brew wherever they want to, but for whatever reason that wasn't there, and I'm glad Philadelphia is getting a nice Brooklyn brewery in there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Other half makes great beer too. Good for them. They're killing it.
Yeah. They really are.
Well, Molly, or excuse me, Hazy Lady. I know. I have to get used to it. It's taking a moment, but I'm so excited. Here's the thing. You are so active on the social medias. You've got this amazing podcast. Where can people find you if they want to hear more about what you're doing, hear about your upcoming cities, follow your adventures everywhere? Where should they look?
Yeah. So people can definitely find me on Instagram at Molly_brews less traveled. That's my
Okay.
Instagram. I love hearing from people, beer recommendations, city recommendations. People can also check out brewvana.com and go on there to sign up for the Brews Less Traveled Beer Club if they want to. But follow me on Instagram. I love it.
And your podcast is, I assume, everywhere where people can find podcasts?
Yeah. Brews Less Traveled is on all platforms.
I have found it everywhere I've looked.
Good.
I found it on Podbean. I found it on Apple Podcasts. I found it on Spotify. It's all over. And and also thank you for being on our show. It's been wonderful, and come back anytime.
This was so fun. Thank you guys so much. I've had a blast.
I'm looking forward to the fact that you're located in Brooklyn now, and you're going to be our Chattanooga correspondent going forward. But
Yes.
also because of your job, you're like regional all over the place. So we're really curious to hear of your future endeavors in the field.
Yes, look for me in any airport because with Chattanooga, there was always a layover. So
No
there's
doubt.
no direct flight from
Well-
Chattanooga. So you will find me in any southeastern airport at this
Well,
point.
And airport beers are acceptable at any time of the day, if I recall correctly, right?
That's my favorite thing.
They
yeah.
are, even when they suck.
Yes.
It's so true.
I had a really bad experience in the Cincinnati airport, but
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We've all been saying positive things about Cincinnati, but no, it's one of those things where, okay, I know we're wrapping things up, but there was one thing when I was coming back from Dayton. It was one of those really stupid things where they had craft beer in the title for the bar, and think, okay, maybe they've got some good local stuff, and it was all InBev stuff.
Yeah,
It's
gross.
like-
It's like
it's
$25.
It's like, I don't have any other choice but to drink here. Why pretend that it's something better than it is? Because I'm drinking here either way. It was. I thought it was very disingenuous, and it made me upset. But I'm better now. Any other business anyone else wants to bring up before we wrap this up and go to our off-air second pours?
No, this was so fun.
Thank you so much for coming, Hazy
It was
Lady.
fun
It's
having you.
been a pleasure getting to know you in the time that we've had together, and so excited to keep hearing about all of your travels with Brews Less Traveled.
And remember,
Thank you,
anyone out
guys.
there, if you want to, if you have any ideas for future shows, any comments, suggestions, harangues, whatever you want to do, all you have to do is reach out to us at the Beer Vengers and Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Email us at thebeerventures@gmail.com. Listen to us anywhere you find your podcasts. If you can't find us where you find your podcast, tell us, and we'll make sure you can find us there. Thank you for listening. And Huck's going to play us out now.
With the beer Vengers, beer Vengers, beer Vengers.
We're the Beer Avengers.
I want to hear you say we're the Beer Vengers, Molly.
We're the Beer Vengers, Molly.